In the late 1960s, a series of cryptic letters began arriving at newspapers across Northern California.
Inside these envelopes were coded messages, disturbing confessions, and chilling threats.
The sender claimed responsibility for multiple murders and signed each letter with a symbol
that would become one of the most infamous in criminal history. He called himself the Zodiac.
The Zodiac Killer is one of America's most enduring mysteries. Unlike many criminals who try to hide, the Zodiac wanted attention. He wanted to be seen, heard, and feared. And most disturbingly, he wanted to play games with law enforcement and the public. The first confirmed attack occurred on December 20th, 1968, on a quiet road near Vallejo, California. Two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, were parked in a car when they were suddenly attacked. The shooter approached without warning. David was killed inside the vehicle, while Betty Lou attempted to flee but was shot multiple times outside the car. The killer disappeared into the night, without leaving a trace. At the time, the attack seemed like a tragic but isolated incident. There were no witnesses, no suspects, and very little evidence to work with. But just months later, it became clear that something far more sinister was unfolding. On July 4th, 1969, another young couple, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mago, were sitting in a parked car in Vallejo
when a vehicle pulled up beside them. A man stepped out, approached their car, and opened fire.
Darlene was killed. Michael survived despite being seriously injured. Shortly after the attack, a man called the police. In a calm and controlled voice, he reported the shooting and then added something that sent shockwaves through investigators. He claimed responsibility for both this attack and the earlier double murder. The caller did not give his name, but the message was clear. The killings were connected. Then the letters began. In August 1969, 3 major newspapers received nearly identical letters
from someone claiming to be the killer. Each envelope contained 1/3 of a coded message.
The newspapers must publish them on the front page. If they refused, he threatened to continue killing.
The newspapers complied. The cipher was eventually solved by a school teacher and his wife.
The decoded message revealed a chilling statement. The writer claimed he was killing people for his own pleasure, and that he believed his victims would serve him in the afterlife. From that moment on, the Zodiac Killer was no longer just a criminal. He was a public figure. In September 1969, the Zodiac struck again. A young couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were relaxing near Lake Berryessa when a masked man approached them.
He wore a dark hood with a symbol on the chest, the same symbol used in his letters.
He claimed to be an escaped prisoner and tied them up before attacking them. Unlike his previous shootings, this attack involved a knife. Cecilia Shepard later died from her injuries, while Brian survived and provided a detailed description of the attacker. Before leaving, the killer wrote them a message on the victim's car door, listing the dates of his previous attacks, confirming his identity. Just weeks later, the Zodiac committed what would become his most brazen crime.
In October 1969, a taxi driver named Paul Stein picked up a passenger in San Francisco.
Instead of reaching his destination, the passenger shot Steen and fled the scene. This time, witnesses saw the killer leaving the area. Police responded quickly, but due to a miscommunication, the suspect was mistakenly described as a different race. Officers may have passed directly by the Zodiac without realizing it. Once again, he escaped. Soon after, another letter arrived. He seemed to embrace the attention, shaping both public discussion and the ongoing inquiry. As time passed, several people were considered. "I'm still here, detective. Those bombs I promised? That's just the beginning. The violence isn't a threat anymore, it's a certainty. And you'll watch it happen." What made the case so unique and so frustrating was the killer's communication.
He sent multiple ciphers, some of which remain unsolved to this day. He provided clues, but also contradictions.
He seemed to enjoy the attention, manipulating both media and investigators. Over time, several suspects were identified. One of the most widely discussed individuals was a man with a troubling past and unusual behavior. He owned a watch featuring the Zodiac symbol and had connections to some of the locations involved in the case. However, despite circumstantial evidence, no definitive proof ever linked him to the crimes. Other suspects came and went, each with pieces of the puzzle, but none with enough to solve it completely. As the years passed, the letters slowed and eventually stopped. The Zodiac Killer simply vanished. No confirmed attacks, no final message, no arrest. Despite advances in forensic science, including DNA analysis,
The case remains unsolved. Some letters have been tested for DNA, but results have been inconclusive or disputed.
the mystery continues to captivate investigators, journalists, and the public. Countless theories attempt to explain the identities of the Zodiac. Was he a lone individual? Was he someone close to the victims? Or was he hiding in plain sight, living an ordinary life between crimes? What makes this case so haunting is not just the violence, but the control. The Zodiac dictated the narrative. He chose when to strike, when to communicate, and when to disappear. He turned attention into a form of influence, using public coverage as his stage.
Today, more than 50 years later, the symbol he used still sends chills down the spine.
The letters, the ciphers, the unanswered questions, they all remain. And somewhere in those unsolved codes may lie the truth. But until that truth is uncovered, one question continues to haunt this case. Who was the Zodiac Killer? And how did he manage to outsmart an entire system, leaving behind nothing but fear, puzzles, and a mystery that refuses to die?